Candace Owens, Narcissist or Something Else, Part 10. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. George Farmer is the husband of Candace Owens, and his observations provide us with some interesting insight with regard to a determination as to what she might be, and also allows clarification of something that's often quoted in relation to Owens. Owens actually interviewed her husband in an episode called Meet My Husband, episode 119 of her podcast, where she stated, "I think another question a lot of people have is, what is the most difficult part about being married to Candace Owens?" Farmer replied, "How long have we got? Well, I like to joke with you, and you know that I tell you this joke. So really, this is just for the audience, but I like to joke that there are many different women I'm married to, because I'm never quite sure who I'm going to get in one day." That observation by Farmer has caused many people to query the nature of Owens. But it's important to provide the full quotation, because that often isn't done. He went on to state, "You know, it's like somebody I'm going to get one personality, and then the next day it's this personality, and then you've got your investigative journalist hat on, and then you've got your mother's hat on, and then you've got your Catholic hat on. So there's a few hats that you're wearing at any one point in time." Now, is this a husband recognizing that his wife undertakes various different roles and is simply juggling those roles? After all, he says, "So it's always fun. I wouldn't say that's difficult. It's really just a joy of who you are as a person." Or is it the case that he's actually identifying compartmentalization on the part of Owens, who behaves in a chameleon-like way by being different people on different days? It's also the case that in the Jay Witt podcast of 19th of October 2025, Farmer was interviewed further in relation to his relationship with Owens. This provided us with some interesting factors that are worth additional consideration. First of all, there was an extremely rushed timeline for their engagement. Both in the interview on her own podcast and that with Jay Witt, it was highlighted that Farmer proposed to Owens after only 18 days, or 17 days in some retellings, of knowing her. This resulted in strong skepticism, noting that no romantic gestures, dates, flowers, or overtures occurred during this period, and query, then, how Farmer could solidify deep feelings, for instance, saying that he sees himself in her, that he has a willingness to fade and give her glory in such a short time. It was also described in the interview as a rom-com or a miraculous Holy Spirit moment. It's acknowledged that friends and family thought it was crazy or insane. Such a rapid progression raises understandable concerns about impulsivity, a lack of foundational knowledge about one another, potential idealization, which is often seen in the narcissistic love bombing, rather than a grounded relationship. It's also the case that there was a lack of initial physical or romantic attraction in descriptions. Farmer emphasizes an esoteric, non-romantic connection, getting to know oneself, saw myself in her, no romantic words or actions before the proposal. He only briefly mentions her incredible beauty at a later juncture. The interviewer calls this out as contrived or odd, suggesting that Farmer avoids admitting physical attraction initially, which could indicate an emotional detachment between the two, projection, or an attempt to spiritualize the relationship to avoid scrutiny. It's also reinforced by Farmer stating he said nothing to Owens at their first meeting, framing it as a strategy that worked, but without any deeper explanation of mutual attraction. This makes the relationship sound like it's contractual in nature rather than two people who actually love one another. Farmer has a self-described submissive or secondary role. He repeatedly describes himself as happy to fade into the background, take a secondary position, and give glory to her. He views their marriage as him supporting her political involvement while he steps back. He ties this to his faith, comparing it to Christ and the church. But in the interview, he questions how he could know this after 18 days. Is this simply a supportive husband, or is it someone who has been sidelined by the force of personality that comes through love bombing? In his interview with his wife, he jokes about his wife having many different women or personalities that he deals with, and notes the cultural clash, quiet Englishman versus loud American, implying that he's making significant personal sacrifices. This might, on his part, signal some form of codependency, a loss of individual identity, or an imbalanced power dynamic where Farmer's needs are deprioritized. He ties personal spiritual transformation to the relationship. In his interview with the podcaster, he frames meeting Owens as a divine path chosen over his previous sinful life, crediting her with his return to Christ and Catholicism after converting at 19 but lapsing. He says without her, he'd be nothing or insignificant, and describes their union as a miracle or partnership like Game of Thrones. The podcaster critiques this as a not true regeneration, but idealization of Owens, using nebulous esoteric language. This is reinforced in the interview with Owens, with George Farmer discussing his faith journey and crediting the marriage for strengthening it. This raises a red flag about enmeshment, where the relationship is idealized as salvific, potentially masking underlying issues or creating unrealistic expectations. There are external doubts and professional pressures. In the interview with his wife, Farmer admits most friends thought he was crazy, and his best man initially said it was never going to happen. Owens reveals professional pushback, including Charlie Kirk advising against it, and a Turning Point USA donor warning her it would harm her brand, for instance not marrying a black guy from the projects. While they overcame this, it highlights initial red flags from close associates about compatibility, motives, or haste. In the interview with the podcast, there's a question as to whether it's actually fate or strategy with regard to the relationship. There are cultural and personality clashes which require major adjustments. In the interview with his wife, it details his shift from a retired English persona, quiet, melancholic, cigar-reading, to adapting to bombastic Americanism, including faith openness in the United States versus UK secularism. Farmer notes the positive, but admits it's been a meeting of two cultures and a huge eye-opener. Owens acknowledges he's had to adjust to her public life, not liking pictures or being seen, implying ongoing challenges. This might indicate long-term strain from mismatched lifestyles, especially with Owens' high-profile career. In the interview with his wife, they describe 2024 as their most challenging year. Job loss, lawsuits, business setup, raising kids, crediting it for strengthening their marriage through raw honesty and adrenaline-fueled focus. However, framing it as fire strengthens and being grateful for being fired might gloss over unresolved stress, with Owens noting their home as the eye of the storm. This could suggest an over-reliance on crisis to bond, indeed, the dramatic chaos that is required from narcissists to mask deeper incompatibilities and as a necessary vehicle for the assertion of control and the drawing of fuel. Both interviews touch on online rumours, for instance, Farmer as a Rothschild, in-laws hating Owens, the Andrew Tate blackmail, which in both instances they laugh off. While they claim it strengthens their humour and bond, constant external lies and opinions could indicate relational strain from fame, or raise questions about transparency, for instance, why such theories persist in the first place. It shows some red flags in relation to this relationship, but they also might simply be interpreted as one whereby Farmer is genuinely content, even after a whirlwind engagement and very quick marriage, to accept a role of being the submissive partner? Or is this indicative of the narcissistic dynamic where Owens has utilised him as a utility, utilising him in a strategic fashion for the furtherance of the prime aims? There's also something else worth considering, and let's go back to that initial comment. Well, I like to joke with you, and you know that I tell you this joke, so really this is just for the audience, but I like to joke that there are many different women I'm married to, because I'm never quite sure who I'm going to get in one day. You know, it's like someday I'm going to get one personality, and the next day it's this personality, and then you've got your investigative journalist hat on, and then you've got your mother's hat on, and then you've got your Catholic hat on, so there are a few hats that you're wearing at any one point in time. What might we be witnessing? One consideration: might it be with his different personalities that is dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder? But there's no actual clinical evidence that Owen suffers from this, which is a severe psychiatric condition involving distinct identity states and amnesia between them. It is the case that Owens reportedly suggests that powerful shadow forces are orchestrating global events, and this is often done with questionable evidence. Just recently, of course, she's claimed that she's been contacted by somebody within the government in France to advise her that there is an assassination contract out on her life. This could reflect paranoid ideation. Paranoia, of course, is a driver in relation to behaviour for the narcissist for the purposes of compelling the narcissist to pursue the prime aims. But it can also exist outside of the narcissistic model. It is the case that many media personalities flirt with this line of powerful shadow forces orchestrating global events. Think about Tate and his matrix observations. And it is advantageous because it often keeps audiences hooked. If the world is being attacked by some form of hidden elite, then you, the viewer, become part of its resistance. You're a hero simply by tuning in. In considering what she might be, which includes the possibility of narcissism, it might simply be the case that we're looking at someone who is simply exploiting the reward system of modern media. After all, provocation yields attention, attention gets monetization, and repetition yields influence. This model rewards behaviour that is very similar to that of narcissism. Provocation gains fuel. Provocation allows the assertion of control. The receipt of fuel can also be monetized, which is a residual benefit. Repetition yields influence, i.e. the assertion of control. And therefore, the appearance of instability might be more lucrative than sanity. In this instance, therefore, might it be that Owen's behaviour isn't pathological, but is actually profitable? Might it be that it is a deliberate decision to engage in this behaviour? Furthermore, could it be that this performative extremism that Owens engages in actually becomes damaging over time? This is known as role engulfment, when the boundaries between public performance and private self collapse. A media figure who repeatedly plays the role of a persecuted prophet may eventually begin to believe that they are one. Here are some considerations for you as we head into the conclusion in relation to whether Candace Owens is a narcissist or narcissistic, a normal or an empath. Is the Candace Owens that you watch and listen to actually her? And is that her true personality? And she cannot help but be this way? And if that is the case, where does that then place her personality with regard to the categorization? Alternatively, is the Candace Owen you watch and listen to simply a performance? And therefore, there is a very different Owens that exists with her family and with her friends than when she is behind a microphone. This is something that George Farmer touches upon. Her husband And might he know better than anybody else, given the proximity of their relationship? If there is a performance, is then simply that's all it actually is? It's akin to an actor going on stage or a pop star putting on a show, and therefore it's not pathological. Or, and this leads to a further question, if she is so willing and content to perform in this way, what does this then tell us about what Owens is? Is it simply adopting a role to be an effective communicator and earn a living? Or is it the case that since she adopts such a role and immerses herself in it, there's something more pathological, calculated, strategic and sinister at work? We'll be keeping those thoughts at the forefront of one's mind as we pull together all of the evidence that we've heard in the conclusion in relation to what Candace Owens is next. Join me there.